Sometimes I think people get so frustrated with the second verse that they don't even consider writing a third verse, which I think is a mistake. So in this video, we are going to talk about 4 things that a third verse can do for your song. One of the great things that a third verse can get you is it is a fantastic setup for an intimate chorus late in your song. So sometimes you'll hear songs where the chorus is usually super big sounding and massive and they're singing really high, but then sometimes you'll hear a chorus near the end of the song, usually right before the final chorus of the song, where it's actually really intimate, almost acoustic. Sometimes it'll be broken down all the way to just the acoustic guitar and the singer, or the piano and the singer, and usually the singer will take the melody down the octave. So it's this really intimate sounding chorus before finally exploding back into the final chorus that is then the chorus in all of its glory once again. Something this often does is actually set up a chorus with alternate lyrics, where either the intimate version of the chorus has some alternate lyrics, or the intimate version of your chorus has the same lyrics as all the other choruses, and then the final chorus is actually the one that has the alternate lyrics. In my opinion, the best way to lead into this naturally is actually a third verse, because usually you're going to go from your bridge to a third verse, and very often the third verse ends up being the smallest, most intimate sounding verse of all. Usually a second verse is almost always going to be bigger sounding and less intimate than the first verse, but the third verse is very, very, very often actually the smallest part of the song, the part where maybe it's just an acoustic guitar and a vocalist, something that is really intimate sounding. And of course, if you have this awesome, really intimate third verse, that is a perfect setup to then go into a really intimate chorus. Another thing that a third verse can get you is it can provide an alternate to just going from your bridge back to a chorus. Probably the most common song structure has a bridge going directly back into the chorus, and there also are bridges that go into pre-choruses before going into the chorus. But the really common alternate that can be a great way to change up your song is actually going from the bridge to a third verse and then back to the chorus. This can be particularly helpful if your bridge doesn't naturally lead back into the chorus, and it feels really awkward when you try to go from your bridge back to your chorus. Because if we take the standard song structure of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, in that case, we need to figure out how verses lead directly into the chorus and how a bridge leads directly into the chorus. But if you have verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, then the only song section that ever transitions directly into your chorus is your verse. And the reality is that some bridges just aren't meant to go directly back into the chorus. Now that could be for several reasons. One could be musically, it just really doesn't set up well to go directly back to the chorus, but it also might not be a good setup for the chorus lyrically. Because in your bridge, you might have something like a plot twist, where it doesn't really make sense to have the plot twist and then right back into the chorus, but instead you want to have the plot twist and then a little more story in your third verse before finally resolving in the final chorus. And this leads me into the third benefit of having a third verse, which is that it allows you to have a 3-part story structure, whether you think of it as 3 parts in a trilogy or whether you think of it as a 3-act story structure. You can have all of that just contained in your verses. So if you take the common song structure of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, very often that will lead into a situation where for the most part you have 3 pieces of story, and the story is contained in the first verse, the second verse, and the bridge. So you can see the first verse as Act 1, the second verse as Act 2, and then the bridge sort of as an Act 3. But something that can work even better is if you have verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, because then you have 3 verses. And your 3 verses can then operate as the 3 acts in your story. And then that allows your bridge to just function as the story climax, where then you can actually have the resolution of the story be handled in the third verse. This also takes pressure off of the bridge to set up for the chorus and to give the final story that's necessary for the chorus. And it really allows the bridge to just concentrate on having the plot twist or the climax of the story. And then you can have the epilogue or the conclusion of the story in your third verse. And the fourth awesome thing that a third verse can get you is that it can give you yet another energy swing in your song. Now this is going to depend on what you're going for, but usually if you want something that feels big and epic, that requires having small parts of your song and large parts of your song. If it's just huge the whole time, it's not really going to come across as epic. Epic requires growth usually. So big energy swings are one of the keys to sort of get that goosebump effect of, oh my goodness, this is so huge and epic epic now, you really need to have parts that are going to be small and large. So let's take a look at our basic song structure of verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. In this song structure, the tendency is going to be that choruses are almost always going to be the big epic parts of songs, and verses are going to be the more intimate parts of songs. And then usually if you have a chorus going directly into a bridge, going directly back into a chorus, that doesn't usually give the bridge opportunity to become intimate again. So instead you usually get this sort of relentless drive to the end of the song, starting with the second chorus, where we have this big second chorus and then a big bridge, finally leading into a really big final chorus. So this means there's probably going to be only two really large energy swings in the song, and that's from the first verse into the chorus and the second verse into the chorus. But just by adding a third verse to the structure, this changes that completely, where now we have verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. So we still have verse 1 into the chorus and verse 2 into the chorus as large energy swings. But usually if you have a third verse, it's going to be very intimate, and that means that your bridge is usually going to be what I call a dissipating bridge, which is a bridge that doesn't just relentlessly march back to the chorus, but instead sort of holds out a chord at the end, sort of fades out, and then finally the third verse comes back in. So within this song structure, we are not losing the verse 1 into the chorus and verse 2 into the chorus energy swings, but we are gaining a third one really late in the song, where we probably have a big second chorus and then probably a large bridge as well, which then sort of fades at the end, a really intimate third verse that usually is more intimate than any other part of the song, as we talked about earlier. And then you have the most massive transition into that final chorus that is going to absolutely melt people's faces because, well, you had something really intimate right before it. And then you're going to have that super intimate third verse go directly into a large chorus, which then means that that final chorus is going to sound extra epic and absolutely massive. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't, write a song with a third verse. One of the most common ways to utilize a third verse is after a bridge, but some songs just don't have bridges at all and instead have verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus, and that's the end of the song. But honestly, probably the best song structure to use with your third verse is to have a bridge directly before the third verse. If you're ready to just jump into songwriting, be sure to grab my free guide on 10 different ways to start writing a song. It gives you 5 ways to start a song from a lyrical standpoint and 5 ways from a musical standpoint. So whether you prefer starting with lyrics or music, there are 5 different ways for you. I encourage you to try both. I personally think that starting with music first is the easier way to go and results in better songs, but you might have a different experience. And regardless, just changing it up is a great way to make sure not all our songs sound the same. You might be really shocked with how different your songs will come out just by putting the guitar down and going over to the keyboard, or deciding to start your song by coming up with a melody and then figuring out the chord progression afterwards. I find that this is the easiest and most helpful way to maintain that balance that we all want to have a sound as an artist, but we also don't want to be accused of the whole all of their songs sound exactly the same. And to me, changing up how you start your song is the easiest way to accomplish that. Not to mention, it's the easiest way to totally avoid writer's block, in my opinion. So be sure to grab that free guide. Link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll talk to you in the next one.